So hello everybody, welcome, and nice to see all of you, and very nice to see Fiona as well. I've been looking forward to this conversation with Fiona, and I have to say that when I had the idea for talking to some of the Super Troopers and inviting them on to have a chat with me, Fiona was somebody who caught my eye because she was posting onto Super Troopers the most beautiful paintings, and in fact the first one that caught my eye that you did, Fiona, I think was like I don't know what the word is, hyperlapse picture of you painting a building which had a particular memory attached to it. So would you like to start off by telling us a little bit about that? Because that was a very particular and special kind of painting. Tell us about that.
Yes, I think I actually put two different ones up on time lapse as well, but the main one was a wedding venue for a wonderful young couple that I met when I was exhibiting at Kingston, which more about that later, and they'd got married in Essex at this amazing place, so they wanted a reminder of it as a painting, which was 1 meter wide by 70 centimeters high. That's what we arrived at in the end, and a very realistic rendering of it rather than a more of an impressionist sort of style. And it was quite a while in the painting because there was so much detail, so many windows, all the little window bars and everything. But I did enjoy doing it, and the time lapse was a really good way of showing something happening quite quickly. Otherwise, it would have been a bit boring for people just watching an actual video of that because it was so detailed and so precise. And they love it. I went up recently to varnish it for them, and they're just so thrilled with it still and show it off to everybody, which is just, that makes my job just so worthwhile. It's, if people are enjoying my work, then I feel I've done a good job, and that's what I want to do.
Absolutely, I was super impressed with it, and it was the sort of minutiae of the detail that you got, and the exquisite sort of technique of reproducing something like that, which was stunning. I thought it was absolutely stunning. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you arrived to be at where you are today, and maybe even describe where you are today, because what you do really. But tell us a little bit about your background first.
Okay, so I don't remember ever not loving art. I've always painted and drawn from a child, mainly horses when I was a little girl, because like lots of little girls, I was completely horse mad. So I had horses all over my exercise books at school and everything. And I didn't do art at O level. I'm not quite sure why, because I really loved my art, but I was quite insistent that I wanted to do the A level, and somehow they allowed and agreed for me to do that, which was really good. But having done that, I would have liked a career in the arts, but for some reason art school didn't ever seem to be an option. And I did look at things like scientific illustration, because I also did biology and geography. But the openings for that are quite few and far between. So in the end, I actually applied to be a nurse to start with, and I got accepted by 2 nursing schools, but the one that I preferred couldn't take me for a few months. So I started working in a bank in the meantime, and decided that actually, after all the regular hours, more or less, and the regular pay and progression, and I was quite enjoying it there, I thought this is actually quite good. And also in retrospect, I think it was a better idea because I have extremely dry skin, and I think the hand washing with nursing would have caused me some problems there anyway. But I do enjoy helping people, and that's why I wanted to go into nursing, but it wasn't really to be. So from there, work took over for quite a while. And although I did carry on doing some drawing, it was a few years until I started doing some actual more painting and joined local art groups, exhibited my work with some success, which was lovely. Although I now look back at those paintings and think, oh dear. But then that's, you know, that's the way we all are. We all develop whatever we're doing. We start at the beginning and we hopefully carry on improving. And then I started doing some commissions of animals mainly. So I've done horses, dogs, cats, a fish even, which was quite unusual, a tropical fish. And gradually over the years, I managed to do more and more art. And so I think probably now for about the last 20 years, I've been taking it a lot more seriously. I still work 3 days a week, office work for a property company on their software side in actual fact. But although I would love to be able to give that up entirely, it relieves the stress of that I would have if I gave it up, of paying the bills. So I would be swapping the stresses of working from home, luckily for a while now, but it will be going back up into London soon. But I would swap that stress for the stress of, not having a regular income from my art, which until I've built it further, then, that's when I'll be able to give up. And of course, when pensions all start to really kick in, which will be a big help. So that's where I've got to at the moment. Last year with lockdown, I was really concentrating on the portraits and promoting the portraits online. So I did really quite well with those last year, and even had a few from the Super Troopers, in fact, which is rather lovely. And then I decided that although I'm still doing portraits, and in fact I've just got a commission for 3 portraits of a couple's 3 young sons to do. And I especially love doing dogs as well, to be honest, but people as well. And I decided at the new year to go back to focus more on my landscapes, which are tranquil, calming, hopefully, so that they give people a little bit of an escape route from the stresses and strains of everyday life, especially over the last year with a year and a half nearly now of COVID. And that's a comment that I often get about my work, is that it is very tranquil and very calming, and which is lovely to hear, because that's, means I'm achieving my aim in that respect. So that's basically where I am at the moment, but things are always changing. I've got some new techniques that I've been trying out, which I'd like to show to you in a little while, but I'm happy to talk about the portraits first, if you'd like.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to know how you've developed your artistic skill over the years. You didn't go to art college or school as such. So how did you go from the point that you were at when you were initially studying and working to the point where you are now? How have you developed that skill?
Well, a lot of it is pure practice. That's so important with art and drawing, anything. I did a couple of, a term of 1 evening a week life drawing, and then one of life painting many years ago now. That was my first sort of official courses, as it were. And that the tutor for that was a super guy, Jai Chowdhury, who I believe is in Norfolk now, still teaching art over there. Then I did about 5 separate weeks in the south of France with another fantastic artist and tutor called Mitch Waite, sadly no longer with us, died all too young of a brain tumor. But that was incredible, just having a week immersed in painting. And he would take all of the students through from the basics, color mixing, composition, seeing, which is just as important as actually getting it down on the paper or the canvas, not trying to put down what you think you know, but what you can actually see, which is often quite different. And a lot of reading, going to see demonstrations, doing workshops with people. So I've got a lot of people to thank for getting me where I am now, and assimilating all that information from art magazines, books, courses, videos, and taking little bits from different places and making it into my own style eventually, which I think just comes with time. I don't think a style can be forced, really. It just has to develop over time. And I think, people do seem to think that I have a a style now, which is quite nice, but it's always changing. And I'm sure that the artists among the group will probably feel the same, that you get influenced by other artists and by things that you've seen, exhibitions that you visit, and it's not copying, it's just taking ideas and presenting them in your own way, as opposed to trying to copy what someone else has done. So yes, lots of people to thank for where I am today.
The south of France painting courses sound absolutely wonderful. Yeah,
amazing.
brilliant.
Yeah. Sunshine, warmth,
yes,
good food, wine.
And wonderful things to look at and paint at the same time, I would think. That sounds blissful to me, absolutely blissful. Are there any particular artists that you love, great artists that you particularly admire?
There's so many, and quite different types of artwork for a lot of them as well. Ken Howard, as a contemporary artist, I love his work. He seems to create a painting that you stand back and look at it and everything is there and you can see all of the detail, but then when you go up close, a lot of it is suggested. It's not that fine, it's not super realism, but it just works when you stand back. I do love that type of painting. There's just so many. I love Salvador Dali's paintings. Now they are just so detailed and exquisite, and I've always loved those since I was at school. Surrealism, clocks melting, elephants with extremely long legs sort of thing, and spindly legs. But I've actually seen some of those in real life as well. And when I was at school, I saw them as posters, big posters that could put on your wall. And amazingly, a lot of them are really tiny little paintings. But because they are so precise, they actually reproduce to larger work, prints and posters really well, which normally it's the other way. A large painting reproduces smaller really well, but not necessarily the other way. A lot of the classic artists, just can't think of any coming to mind at the moment, but so many. I like some abstract, not all of it. Some of it I think has just been, it doesn't have the thought behind it, but then I see other abstract works that just speak to me and I can see different things in them, or that they're interesting, the colors or the shapes. I find there has to be something in there to act as a key to interest me.
Yeah, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So you said you were going to show us some of your portraiture.
I can. Now these are actually the ones I'll show you now are prints, because of course once the portrait's done it goes off to its new home. So I have a dog here which was wonderful. Painted with brushes. Try and move it over. So that was about the actual size for that painting. There are lots of these on my website as well. This is another little one. She was a real cute little dog at dog training, because I used to take my dogs to dog training every week, and she was just a real sweet little girl there. So those are two that were painted with brushes, which if I'm doing a commission, I normally use brushes because I can get the detail, and it's so important for a commission to actually reproduce that animal, not just a dog, even if it's the same breed, it has to be that particular dog,
How would you go about doing that? Would you do that from photographs?
Yes. I do prefer to take the photographs myself if I can, if they're not too far away, and also if the animal's still alive, because quite often people think about this, sadly, once the animal's no longer with us. And I've even had that with people as well. So it's meant working from photographs. Quite often they're not ideal because they weren't taken with a view to having a portrait painted from them. So, but I do prefer to take them because that way I get a better idea of the dog's character or the person's character as well. And it makes my job easier to get something of the, the character and spirit of that subject into the painting. But I have done a few with knives as well for dogs now, which I found I just wanted to try. So this has actually been, sorry, it's got a varnish on it, so it's a little bit reflective, but it was painted using painting knives. So there's quite a bit of texture on the paint there as well. And another one which Actually, it's got a matte varnish on, so it's a little bit easier to see. So a good old gentle giant there. And I started using knives to paint because I wanted to be a bit looser and a bit more expressionist in my painting. And as people probably don't know what a painting, or non-artists may not know what a painting knife looks like, this, for example, is my favorite little knife. So it's got a cranked handle and then a blade at the end for actually applying the paint, and the cranked handle keeps your fingers out of the paint so you don't mess up what you've done and get covered in paint. But there are so many different sorts, different sizes, so little ones, little diamond pointy shaped ones, longer flat blades, blades that actually don't have a cranked handle but they are shaped at the end, which helps to keep fingers out of paint, square ones, other different shapes and points, so many different types that and then a flat blade is what I would normally use for cleaning my palette rather than for actually painting, because it's not so easy to keep your fingers out of the paint with that. But you can still use these for making scratching marks into the paint and things as well, for like calligraphic marks on the paint. And for my landscapes, I do normally use knives for those, but definitely brushes for portraits if it's a commission, because that's what people want, you know, to see their particular dog or cat, horse, whatever.
And how long would it take you to do something like that? You know, those paintings of dogs that you've just shown us there.
They take a few hours, quite a few hours, some of them, but they're not done in one go, because I like to work, I put down a tonal painting first, so the darks and the lights to get the tonal balance in there. And then I go in with colour on top of that, and I'll often work in layers and let each layer dry. And with oils, that can take a few days at least to dry, depending on the colours that I'm using. Some colours take longer to dry than others. So it can be a process that can maybe take over, you know, several weeks even sometimes. And if I've got several portraits on the go, I'll work on one while that one's drying, I'll work on another one, and so on. But it can take a little while, elapsed time for them to be completed, even though the actual time isn't several weeks of, you know, full-time painting on them.
And is it mostly portraits that you get commissioned to do?
So far, yes. 2 wedding venues, and a theatre organ, a Wurlitz, the theatre organ, and possibly another one of those with 2 grand pianos, one on either side as well. Another commission of that, I think, but it's mainly it's been dogs, and I suppose because I've been associated with dog people a lot as well, for, you know, with dog training and showing things. But also people, quite a few people, and say the 3 that I've got to do at the moment are little lads, very, very cute little boys they are as well.
That sounds wonderful. And how do you do people find you? Is it just reputation and recommendation and things like that?
A lot of it is recommendation. I've had a lot of people come back for 2nd and 3rd portraits when, you know, with one dog sadly no longer with them, and they buy a new one, or, you know, sometimes they'll just add to their family of dogs, and you know, hopefully nobody has died in the process. But also before lockdown, and hopefully afterwards again, I exhibit at Kingston every other Saturday, which is open air, Kingston-on-Thames, and I often have had commissions through there. So that's all through the year, including every Saturday in December, but subject to the weather. If it's the real killer for us is if it's really blowing a gale, because then everything just goes everywhere, which doesn't do paintings any good, and the boards can blow over, and you know, it could be dangerous to hurt passers-by. The cold doesn't stop us, but the wind's the killer, and if it's forecast to rain all day, then we have been known to cancel on those occasions as well. But having done that on a couple of occasions, and the days turned out absolutely brilliantly, we don't often cancel because of rain being forecast. We cover the work with plastic sheeting if it starts raining and cover it once it stops. But yeah, so a lot of commissions through there, also through dog training, and promoting myself on Facebook, Instagram, and also LinkedIn now as well. So anywhere I can, really.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And so tell us a little bit more about the paintings behind you. You know, we've got some beautiful examples there. So is this a new departure for you? And you know, why have you gone in that direction?
Some of these are in a newer style. I used to paint landscapes with brushes as well, and I've been in all sorts of places painting. France, as I said, all around UK, Venice a couple of times painting, which was incredible. And I've got one of Venice here, which was painted with brushes. So you can see it's more realistic, more you know, depicting the actual scenery that's there. Whereas some of the newer ones that I've been working on are a little bit more, they're in a looser style, they're painted with knives, and with a couple of them, such as this one, going slightly abstracted even, just not trying to have some that's the background that's more looser, generally a bit more diffuse, and then just picking out some of the detail in the foreground. So it's a different style. Some of the small ones, I really enjoy doing some of these small paintings occasionally. They are also with knives, maybe a little bit more detailed. But
where is that one?
That one was actually based on the Rockies, so from sketches and photographs. That one in Northern California, just heading up the coast road there. I haven't actually painted in America yet. I have taken my paints and paintings on planes, so Venice and France, but for America, it's, you know, normally a little bit more limited with space, and you know, can't take solvents on planes anyway, of course. This one was the first, like the new sort of style that I was doing there. So as you can see, it's a little bit more, it's not quite abstract, but it's a little bit more just suggestive rather than detail.
Impressionistic. Yeah.
Yes. And then even more recently, I've been trying out another new technique with the same sort of oil painting on top, or sometimes with gold leaf on top of the paint. So the first one I did was I covered just a small canvas with gold leaf. It's actually imitation gold leaf because I'm painting on top, and I didn't want real gold to be covered up by oil paint. Trying to get it so you can see some of it. And then, so the gold leaf goes onto the canvas. It's a stretched canvas, and that gets applied with what we call size, which is basically the adhesive. The gold leaf goes on, then it's sealed to make sure, with it not being real gold, that it won't tarnish and that the oil paint won't affect the gold leaf. And then I've painted on top of it with oil paints. And it's amazing with these paintings how when you catch them in a different light, this is one that's I've put the gold leaf on ready to paint on next as well.
Yeah.
You catch them in a different light and they look completely different. This one, for example, has more paint on top of the gold leaf.
Yes.
But if you see it in the evening light and low light, the paint almost becomes a silhouette, and the reflected light off the gold leaf behind it makes it look like it's a sunset looking through the woods. And I'm just really enjoying doing those. They're good fun. I shan't work like this for everything, but and that was the other one that I've done so far, called New Beginnings, because it's got its little baby tree growing up in there. And it's just another technique and just something different, but still in my style. I have used gold leaf on top of a couple of older paintings as well, just to ones that I thought, I'm not sure about these ones, so let's just try it on something. And it actually gives them a little bit of something extra, you know, and so it's all good fun. And it's, I think, you know, I'm sure people who do any of the other arts as well find that there's always something new to look at and to try and to play with, even if you try it but don't want to carry on with it later on. You know, you can just, it's something to try out, experiment with, and even if you don't carry on with that particular technique, you'll probably take something away from it to use with whatever techniques you go back to or develop for, you know, in the future. So yeah, it's good fun. Enjoy it.
Well, it's the essence of creativity, really, isn't it? That you are always seeking to push the boundaries, try different things, and so on. I mean, you know, you're not going to be painting the same painting over and over again, are you? You're going to want to experiment. I saw a wonderful interview very recently, I think it was last week, with David Hockney, and who is, I find him stunning because he's 83 now, and he's apparently during lockdown has been in a farmhouse in Normandy, and he went there because of the Bayeux tapestry. So he became absolutely obsessed with the notion of a very, 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 very long picture depicting different scenes. And so he's created an extremely long picture which folds up, and it's all the seasons. So he's painted a similar view with all the seasons changing, and of course it's stunning. And I just love, and it's the same with you, the sort of inventiveness of the imagination and the creativity that comes from that. That's what I admire, I think, most about people who are creative in the way that you are, that paint, because I'm not at all creative like that. And I just think it must be lovely to live inside your head because you're going to be seeing the world in a different way, and you're going to be experiencing it completely differently, and so on. When you're painting your pictures behind you, are you doing that outside? You know, do you do that from life, or do you do photographs? How do you go about that?
The smaller ones, and like the Venice one, that they're painted outside in front of the subject. And for example, there's a small one here. I'll fetch it off for a minute. I don't know if you can see it from back there. This was painted from life, just on a little board. I do like to paint outside when I can, but I find it a little bit, I'm a bit restricted on size, because it's, you know, if you've got a breeze and you've got a canvas of any large size, you've got to have a few stones to weight it down and whatever. So I tend to work not much bigger than about 10 by 12, 12 by 16, depending when I'm out. And that I find there's an immediacy to it and an energy to it when you're working in front of the subject that you don't always get when you're working from sketches and photographs, which is my other option. And if I'm working from a photograph, even if I've got a sketch that I've done on site, the painting will often, and even working on site, the painting can often just diverge from what's actually in front of me, because I'm just seeing other things in it and just seeing other ways that it can go. Now, obviously, for a commission, if you know, with the wedding venue, or if somebody wanted a particular view, then there's a limit to how much I would interpret that view in my own way, because, you know, they're wanting something that actually reminds them of that particular subject. But when it's for my own pleasure, then, you know, trees can get moved about and things can change color, and, you know, it just, you know, there's one that I did recently where the sky was a sort of greenish yellow, which wouldn't really happen, but it just worked with the painting, and it just set off the other colors within it. So yeah, I like to try and sort of push things a little bit as well, and I don't want to be a slave to a photograph or even a scene necessarily, you know, even what I'm seeing in front of me. And at the moment I'm also teaching a drawing course, and that's one of the main things that I am trying to convey to other people is how to see, first of all, you know, as they're only just starting out, how to really see what's in front of you rather than what you think is there. So, for example, a cup and saucer, don't just think it's a cup and saucer. I know what one of those looks like. See it as half a sphere for the cup, maybe, and then a more shallower little part of a sphere for the saucer, you know, and try to think of things as shapes, not as what we know them to be. And once, you know, we've got a bit further into the course, it'll be a case of, well, okay, so now you're seeing that. Does depicting that just as you're seeing it give you pleasure, or would it, to your mind, look more aesthetically pleasing if you changed it a little bit and interpreted it in your own way? So it's all, you know, it's another step down the road. I think most people go through the putting down what they think they see first of all, then learning to see what really is there, and then learning to see what's there but change it to be what you're actually trying to show people, and emphasizing certain parts, downplaying other bits, you know, having sharp edges to bring something into focus and soft edges to let it sort of fade away into the background a bit for bits that you don't want people to concentrate on as much. So there's just so many things to talk about. So many.
That last bit was like makeup, isn't it? There's some things that you want to draw attention to, and some things that you want to draw attention away from. And so, do you do these courses online?
At the moment, yes, and they're all on Zoom. But I've done a lot of courses, workshops and demonstrations for art groups, which are in person, and that's really lovely because you get the immediate feedback and response from people. And often on Zoom, and that, I think for a start you need most people muted as you have here, because otherwise you can't hear the person who's speaking, and you know, it all gets to be a bit chaotic. And I think people are a bit reluctant to unmute themselves and say, well, actually, I don't understand that bit, or I've got a question. Whereas in a demo or a workshop, people just chip in, you know, as I'm painting, they're just, oh, what color are you using there? Or how did you do that? And there's more interaction. But Zoom has been an absolute blessing and a godsend over the last year or so, you know, keeping us all in touch and being able to still carry on doing demos and workshops, and you know, we're all learning from it. And I just think it's amazing. We couldn't have done it 5-10 years ago. Certainly we wouldn't have been able to do this. So yeah.
Let's have a few questions for you, and we'll finish with the Facebook group that you have. So Bryony, what questions have we got for Fiona?
Yeah, we have had a couple of questions. So first of all, June would love to know, have you ever or do you ever work with watercolour?
Okay, I have some watercolours. I have used watercolours mainly now if I'm out sketching and I can't take my oils, and I maybe take a sketchbook, and I tend to use them a bit splashy and maybe with some it's like a Conte, which is like a hard chalk in a dark colour. Watercolours are, it's a medium that people often think they can start with because they think it's easy and it's not going to be smelly and messy. Watercolours one of the most difficult mediums because it's not so easy to hide any mistakes. You can wash it off, wash it back under the tap and start again, or you could cover it with some pastel or acrylic, but to do really good watercolours is not an easy job, and I really admire good watercolourists. You know, oils, you can scrape it back while it's still wet, go over the top of it, you can paint on top of it once it's dry, you can change it, you can move things about. So in that respect, you've got a lot more leeway if you think, oh, well, that bit's too big or it's not big enough, you can change it. But watercolour is not so easy. Yes, it can be quite compact and not too messy. Having said that, some of the pigments in some colours do stain. It's the same pigments in all the different types of paint, but just with different mediums with them, so the different binders, so oil with oil paints, obviously, acrylic resin with acrylics, and so on. But I think that maybe what sometimes puts people off painting is if they start with watercolours, it can be very difficult and not as forgiving as some of the other mediums.
Perfect. And then a question from Joan. She wants to know whether the weather in the south of France affects your paints at all.
They definitely dry a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So if if I'm out doing sketching with the watercolors, you need to mix up plenty of paint and get it on there really fast, otherwise you get hard edges appearing. But the oils also dry a lot quicker than they do if it's midwinter here and a bit chilly, and humidity doesn't really affect the oils as much. But the warmer it is and the, you know, in the sunshine down there, definitely they dry a lot quicker.
And then a final question from Jacqueline. She would love to see one of your cat portraits. You don't have any of them to hand, do you?
I don't, I'm afraid, no.
Perhaps we could pop one in Super Troopers afterwards.
Yeah, I've not done as many cats, I have to say. Cats, in fact, I used to do cats in coloured pencil more than in oil paints. But there is one on my website, which is fionahooper.com. Sebastian, that I did year before last. He's on there, but again, it was a slightly old photograph, which makes things slightly trickier, but so he is on there. But I could certainly put some of well, I did some miniatures of cats as well, which were only about so big. I could actually post some of those on Super Troopers for you.
That would be amazing, thank you. I'll hand back over to Tricia now, thank you.
Thanks, Bryony. Shall I be very grubby and commercial and ask you a little bit about prices? So if you have a commission, Fiona, for a portrait, what kind of cost would that be to me if I commissioned I haven't got a dog, but if I had a dog, a portrait of my dog?
Right, the portraits that I'm just going to be doing of the young boys, they are going to be 40 centimetres by 50 centimetres. And they'll be £500 each for oils. If I was to do a coloured pencil work, which I do still do some coloured pencil commissions, a wedding venue last year I did in coloured pencil, a smaller scale. They're normally a bit less, but for oils, that's the sort of price. And on my website, there is a link on the commissions page to see prices on there as well. So obviously, the smaller the work, the less it costs. I mean,
with a direct comparison with how long it must take you to do some of those, I think that's extremely reasonable. It seems to me. And just finally, you were talking to me a bit earlier about this Facebook page and link to poetry. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, since lockdown started first last year, I decided I needed to get my art out there more because I wasn't going to Kingston or being involved in physical exhibitions. And so I signed up for a free 5-day challenge about social media marketing, which I then did a paid course with them as well. And one of the things that they really do promote is going live on Facebook. And it's all on the basis of know, like, love, trust. So people get to know you, they get to like you, hopefully, and then to build up more confidence in you and love you, and then to trust you to buy work from you or commission work from you. And one of the things on the course that I've just been doing is a challenge to set up a live weekly show. So at the same time every week, do a live show. It doesn't have to be very long, and it's to be on the same subject, so it'll have the same title each week. And I was sort of thinking, what can I do for that? And I came up with the idea of the poetry of painting. So I started researching poetry and art, and my first 3 live shows were on the way that poetry links with art, and I'd found poems online about art, including a very cheeky little one about the Mona Lisa, which I can't quite remember at the moment. It's only very short, but it references how he painted her with her actual clothes on as opposed to not on, and so it's a cheeky little one, but it's not rude, it's just very funny. And then I had what I thought brainwave of inviting other poets onto my show. So I joined a poetry group on Facebook and was quite upfront with why I was joining, that I'm interested in poetry, but also I was looking for people who may like to join me on my show, which will be a collaboration. So it will be good for me and it'll be good for them. It will promote them as well at the same time. And so that's been going on now for a few weeks. And what happens is that we agree between us on one of my paintings, and we each write a poem about that painting. And so I've done 11 poems now for my paintings. In fact, I've done an extra one as well, which I didn't like, so I did a completely new one for that painting. So I've got an extra one that I'm not using. And I also print them out so that they will actually go, when a painting sells, the poem will go with the painting as well. And that's been working really well. Last week, I had another artist on actually who is also a poet, but her poetry takes the form of songs and songwriting, and she sang her poem on my show last week. So it's been working really well, and it's good fun. I've met some really lovely poets from around the world. An Australian poet was on a couple of weeks ago. She's absolutely adorable, love her work. And it's so interesting to hear the way that they've interpreted my painting in their poem versus how I've, with the benefit of me actually knowing what went behind the painting, how I've interpreted it. And so we don't discuss the painting before they put down their response to it in their poem. And I'm hoping that going forwards, once I've got enough material, enough poems about enough paintings, with guest poets' poems as well, which I also post on my social media, crediting them obviously, so hopefully raising their profile as well. And they post my painting with their poem on their profiles. But I'm hoping that it will build into a book in due course of my paintings with poems both by myself and by all these other wonderful poets as well, who will of course be thoroughly credited in the book as well.
That sounds amazing, really fantastic. That's like a whole community you've created there. So is this is live? When is it?
It's at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. It may have to change in a couple of months' time to 7 o'clock because I'm going to have to start going back up to London on a Wednesday. So it would have to change to 7. But I actually have a distinct impression that we have some poets amongst the Super Troopers, because I seem to remember seeing some poetry posted. And I would love it if anybody out there would like to write a poem about a painting and come on my show. I think that would just be wonderful. So if anybody is interested at all, just let me know, send me a message or put something in the group, and it'd be lovely to have a chat and see if that can work, because I just think it's really nice.
Why don't you put a post yourself, Fiona, onto Super Troopers, and what we'll do is we'll obviously advertise the recording of this on Super Troopers, like we always do. Quite a lot of people watch the recording because they haven't had the opportunity to see it live. And then, so we'll do that anyway, and we'll put links on that to your website. But at the same time, if you put a post onto Super Troopers asking for any people who are interested in writing poetry, perhaps about one of your paintings, to join that, then I'm sure you'll get a good response to it. It sounds like a really nice thing to do. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much indeed. That was absolutely wonderful, full of admiration for what you do. And as I said, I'm quite jealous. We're talking in our group about how lovely it must be to inhabit a creative mind like yours, to be involved in producing beautiful pictures and paintings and so on. And it must be a lovely way to spend time, I think, being immersed in the world of a painting, and enormously enjoyable. And well done. I think it's beautiful what you produce, and thank you so much for talking to us. It's been lovely, and thank you very much to everybody who has come in onto the Zoom call and joined us. It's always lovely to see all of you and to have your company. And obviously thank you to Bryony for doing all her techie stuff as usual so beautifully. And can I just remind all of you that we've got Film Club on Friday. We're talking about a very interesting film called 45 Years with Charlotte Rampling and Tom Courtney. It's on Curzon Home Cinema, and it's about a couple who've been married for 45 years and a bombshell drops in their marriage, and the film is about what happens. So hopefully you'll all join me on Friday to discuss it, and I'll look forward to seeing you then. And again, finally, thank you, Fiona. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Tricia. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been lovely to see some faces live on the screen as well, not just images on the Facebook group. So thank you so much, everybody, and lovely talking with you all.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.